my delight to welcome you to this next session on boosting mitochondrial health and active lifestyle, led by Dr. Anurag Singh. Dr. Singh received his medical training in internal medicine from the Armed Forces Medical College in Pune, India, and a PhD in immunology from the University of Connecticut in the USA. And he has authored over 30 articles in top of peer-reviewed journals. He has 10 patents and has designed and led 40 clinical trials over the past 15 years. If you have any questions during this presentation for the online audience, please type them in, and I'll take the questions, bring you the microphone for the in-person audience. And without further ado, Dr. Singh, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you for the organizers, and thanks, Natalia. So I'll be talking, I think you heard about consumer insight, then you heard about sustainability. I'll actually fast forward to some clinical evidence behind a nutritional product that we have been working for the last 13 years, very close to Geneva in Lausanne. So we are based out of, as I mentioned, the Swiss Institute of Technology, about 50, 60 kilometers from here in Lausanne. And so the company is Amazentis, and the brand that we have created is Timeline Nutrition. This is following about 13, 14 years of research out of the EPFL in Lausanne. And I'll be talking about the discovery, which is urolithin A, and I'll be talking about what it does on mitochondrial health and why it's so key for an active lifestyle. So today, and I picked this quote from Scientific American editor-in-chief, who said that the most important difference between the world today and 150 years ago isn't airplane flights or nuclear weapons or even the internet. It's lifespan, right? We used to live 35, 40 years on an average about 50, 60 years back, but now we are almost living to an average of 80. And we used to get one life, now we get two. So again, focusing on how we can live healthier and longer, and that's really the focus of our company. So as I mentioned, Amazentis and Timeline Nutrition was started with a simple question out of EPFL, which is the Swiss Institute of Technology, as I mentioned, not too far away. And the idea was to create a unique biotech, much like, Genentech, you hear about pharma and biotechs, and you hear about Genentech and Amgen. The idea was really to create a true biotech in the nutrition industry that would discover new natural compounds and take them all the way from discovery, high throughput, clinical trials, and then, of course, commercialization. And that's what we have done, basically, in the last 15 plus years. All the work has been conducted at the EPFL, which is not far from here, and the findings have led to a remarkable new opportunity, not just in aging, but in generally in active lifestyle and healthy aging. So today, there are a lot of companies that are focused on anti-aging. As a company, Amazentis today is really focused on Healthspan and not lifespan necessarily. So the goal is to target biological pathways that can extend this health span. So you want to be 80 and 85, and you want to be mobile. You want to be able to do your activities of daily living, and that's what we call health span, the duration of life during which one is in good health. And lifespan, of course, is your duration of your life. So Amazentis is really playing in the health span area today. So when you talk about active lifestyle, you talk about mobility. And when you talk about mobility, you talk about muscle health and muscle aging. So what you see basically in this graph that I'm showing you is that muscle function from your, from your birth to your sort of peak adulthood peaks about third decade of life. So in your 20s and 30s is when you have the most optimal muscle function and you're most active, right? Now, every decade following you, the third decade, starting from the fourth decade, you're losing about 10% of your muscle mass and 10% of your muscle strength. And this really peaks in this sort of trajectory. So if you, again, the recipe is pretty simple, and you heard that, diet and exercise. So if you're eating right and you're exercising, you can pretty much follow the green trajectory up at the top of this graph that I'm showing you, and you can be 80, 85, 90 years old and be very active and leading an active lifestyle. But if you are sedentary and not having the right diets, this decline in muscle mass and muscle function and strength really starts peaking around the 5th and 6th decade and accelerates. And so what we call, I'm a clinician, so what we call when we see about 70-year-old, 80-year-olds, we call it pre-frail or frail people who just cannot move or take, they can't even walk a few meters. And that's where you end up, and that's where things like drugs play a role. Well, we are a nutrition company, and so what we want basically is to act early in the active, healthy aging years when you're 30, 40, 50, to really improve through mitochondrial health your lifespan and health span. So what we hear, and this is probably resonates with a lot of audience, is, it resonates with me, I'm in my mid-40s, that I'm getting older, so I just don't have the energy that I once did to go about doing sports or going about my daily activities. And so this is really our target consumer as we started the science and we started thinking about the commercialization of the science. So if you look at the market of mobility and decline in muscle function, this is a tremendous unmet need. There are about close to 55, 60 million people, 65 years and older, just projected in 2020 in the US alone. And if you look at worldwide, there'll be more than 1 billion people over 65 years. Now, if you focus again, just not on the older population and the baby boomers, but also the sort of the 40, 50-year-olds, this is a much bigger market. And what we see is that in our clinical studies, and this is not just our study, but a number of clinical studies, that about half the adults, whether it's middle-aged or older adults, start to show this decline. So this manifests as you're aging into what we call as sarcopenia, which is really, your muscle mass is decline, and that's why you hear about high protein supplementation a lot in older adults and healthy aging. But what we want to target is really people who are already just, healthy and active, normal, and just starting to show these signs of what we call as sarcopenia. And that's really our focus today in the company. So just, again, talking about mitochondria, because that's the focus of my talk. What are mitochondria? Well, mitochondria, probably you remember your biology class. These are these organelles, if you think about a Tesla car, this is the battery. This is the battery driving the horsepower, the engine. And so mitochondria are these tiny organelles inside your cells that are responsible for giving energy. And so looking at, just think about a skeletal muscle. The muscle is an organ with the highest abundance of mitochondria, and each muscle cell has about 2,000 of these. What happens with aging is that these mitochondria start declining with age. So starting in your 40s, 50s, 60s, this process is greatly accelerated. And as a result of declining mitochondrial health, what you get is declining cellular health. And as a result of decline in mitochondrial and cellular health, what you get is weak muscles. And that manifests as poor mobility, poor health, and well-being. I'm not sure why my pointer is not working very well. Okay, so our discovery, what has the company discovered? We have discovered this new natural compound called urolithin A. This is a gut metabolite, so a postbiotic that is produced by the gut microbiome and the gut microflora. Now, why do we care about it? Well, we all like to eat a healthy diet, so the precursors, what we call as polyphenols, are found in the pomegranates, they're found in nuts and berries. And these precursors, these fruits and nuts are very rich in compounds that we call L-glutathione, which is really the dietary precursor to urolithin A. So when you take this, so if you're eating a right diet, that's one bias that you need to have in a healthy lifestyle. When you're taking these fruits and nuts, your gut microbiome then digests these polyphenols and releases the postbiotic or the gut metabolite urolithin A. And what we are seeing today in our clinical studies across populations is that not everybody has the right gut microbiome to produce this molecule, urolithin A. So in our studies, we see, depending on where you're looking, in France or Canada or US, we see about 30–40% of the people have the right gut microbiome to produce this postbiotic. And our discovery, built on 10+ years, has really been doing a deep dive on how this molecule works on mitochondria, and I'll explain to you how it does in the next slide. But briefly, it triggers mitophagy. And what mitophagy is think about mitophagy as your garbage disposal in your bodies, okay? So if you're accumulating too much waste over time and not cleaning it, your cells will start to, not be healthy, and your body will start to be not healthy. And this is what urolithin A does. It triggers mitophagy, which means that it now can clean. So this is a cartoon that I put together. So a mitochondria, if you think about its lifespan, and there are other compounds known to act on mitochondria, like resveratrol and nicotinamide riboside or CoQ10. So in the journey of a healthy mitochondria, the mitochondria, newly created mitochondria, need to come in by a process called sort of fission and fusion. And over time, with aging, this process slows down. And the process that slows down is called mitophagy. This is sort of the recycling of your faulty, declining mitochondria. And so these cells in our bodies cannot clear the cellular waste. And so you need an activator of mitophagy. Exercise is clearly one. Intermittent fasting is another way to activate mitophagy. And now what we are finding with this gut metabolite postbiotic called urolithin A is that it can also activate mitophagy, clean the cellular waste, and allow the growth of healthier new mitochondria, which gives rise to better cellular and muscle function. So I just put this map just to show what are the different natural compounds today known to activate on different parts of the mitochondria. So you would, as I mentioned, you would heard of biogenesis probably, which is compounds like resveratrol, NAD supplementation, or even sort of other known activators of biogenesis. And urolithin A also is known to do that. So this is the process of creating healthier new mitochondria for example, in healthy aging or in sports. This is a very active field. Then you can activate on the existing pool of mitochondria by increasing their energy production. And there are a number of compounds like CoQ10 and L-carnitine and creatine that optimize the sort of the energy production from these mitochondria. Where urolithin A is very unique is that it activates mitophagy, which, as I mentioned, is really the clearance of the damaged mitochondria. So you won't get biogenesis, you won't get optimal production with aging if you are actually just accumulating the faulty mitochondria and you don't clear them away. So I've already emphasized this. Amazentis is the company. We have launched a new brand of advanced cellular nutrition products called Timeline Nutrition. And today, Timeline Nutrition focuses, as I mentioned, on the discovery of natural compounds that boost mitophagy. So what we have shown before in many top peer-reviewed journals is that urolithin A has been shown to extend lifespan in models of aging by 45%. We have shown that it improves endurance in older animals by 57%. And today, I'll be showing you some data from a number of clinical trials that show that this is also successfully achieved in both healthy middle adults, older adults, and now we are running clinical trials even in elite athletes. And all that work over 15 years has led to a very successful launch of the Timeline Nutrition brand in the US, following, of course, FDA GRAS approval and the clinical studies. And now we even have a global partnership with Nestlé Health Science, which is the leading VMS player today in the world, to commercialize MitoPure, which is basically urolithin A in their products. So just, I'm not going to go into too much nerdy details here, but what I did want to share is a couple of publications. So this is a publication we put out a few years back in Nature Metabolism, where we gave healthy older adults 4 weeks of this product and compared it. This is a randomized control trial, and we took muscle biopsies. So if you compare it to the right, what you're seeing is this is just a healthy population. We took 70, 75-year-olds who were running marathons, and we asked the question, how does their mitochondria look in their muscles? And what you see on the extreme right, when it says active, each column is an individual subject, each row is an individual mitochondrial gene expressed in the human muscle. And going from red to blue, red means mitochondria are happy, blue means mitochondria are not happy. So people who exercise, their mitochondria in their muscle are very robust and red and happy. When you compare it to 70-year-olds who are sedentary and not moving around, you see a lot of blue, which means their mitochondrial health is not good. But when you now take the same sedentary people and give them placebo or the different doses of MitoPure, what you see, going from left to right on the phase 1 study that you see, is that the placebo over 4 weeks doesn't do much, and starting with 500 milligram, you start to see an improvement in mitochondrial health, and 1 gram, you really see a signature similar to even exercise interventions. And so this is, I'm happy to share publications if anybody is interested. Now, we have just published in JAMA as well, JAMA Open earlier this year, where we gave MitoPure for a longer duration, for 4 months, and we saw that in healthy older adults, just in 2 months, their intervention was able to increase by about 26% the leg endurance, and when we looked at the hand, in the hand it was 26%, and the leg it was about close to 20%. And this is in the absence of any exercise intervention. So this is pretty remarkable for the field and for a nutritional intervention. So again, happy to share this JAMA paper with you all. Just to summarize also the last study that is also coming out in Cell Press in the next couple of weeks in Cell Reports Medicine. This time we went as following the theme of this session, which is active lifestyle. We said, okay, older adults, we know mitochondria are declining. We expected to see an effect. What happens if you give it to 40-year-olds, 40 to 60-year-olds who are much younger? And so here we are looking at a 4-month intervention with MitoPure and looking at their muscle and leg strength. And here what we see compared to placebo is that the MitoPure at just the 500 milligram dose was able to significantly improve by about 21% compared to the placebo, the leg muscle strength. This is again in the absence of any exercise. So this is again reiterating what we have seen before in other trials. I think you may have to change the battery here, but okay, just last couple of few slides. We have looked at different products, again, products on the market that are based out of the pomegranate, because again, the pomegranate is a healthy food known as a superfood. We've looked at different top Amazon products across the, whether they are supplements or 100% juices. What we do see is that, of course, these products contain a lot of polyphenols, but in a very different concentration. Timeline is the only product that has the active postbiotic, which is urolithin A, and none of these other products actually have that. So if you're not eating right, if your gut microbiome is not healthy, you absolutely then need to take the supplementation with the postbiotic. And we have also published this study last year where we gave a glass of 100% pomegranate juice, and we compared that to just a small sachet of our food product, and I'll talk about the different products we have. And what we see is that, at least in the US, only about sort of 12% people had this urolithin A, which is the gut postbiotic. When they drank the juice, only about 40% people could convert it. But what you see in the right panel is really a 6-fold increase with the direct supplementation with MitoPure compared to, say a robust, perfect diet containing pomegranate juice. And this is pretty phenomenal. There are gut microbiome changes that I will not go into. But we have taken this to the next level. I think you heard at one of the previous talks about precision nutrition. We are now designing a simple test even that you can take in the comfort of your home, and you can tell whether you're actually making this molecule from your diet. And if you're not, well, then you need to take the supplementation. And it's a small test. You just prick on your fingers, a few drops of blood. You send it to our lab, and we will be able to tell you how your gut microbiome health, which is really, measuring the postbiotic, which is the end result of a healthy gut microbiome. So this is work that is in development. We've launched the product about a year and a half, 2 years back, and we've got some amazing feedback from customers who are all active, who are all healthy, and they're saying, well, we have more energy than we have had in years. Some are recovering from surgeries. What they're saying is pretty consistent with what we have seen in our clinical studies, which I showed you about changes in leg strength and changes in improvement in energy levels. We've had a lot of high-profile medical doctors and celebrities who have started taking the product. Mark Hyman, he's a pretty famous doctor in the US. He went on the product and he swears by it. He's recovered from a surgery, and he feels that one of the products that really helped him recover is urolithin A, the postbiotic that I just mentioned to you. So today, just to summarize and finish, today our product portfolio, we are of course scientists and doctors. We have led the work for 15 plus years, but we know that good health and good nutrition should not just be in a pill that you pop every day. You should be allowed to, you should have the flexibility to take it in good tasting food products, and that's what we have developed a whole portfolio. So we have a pomegranate flavored, berry flavored powder that you can mix in your muesli, in your morning cereal. So, I've been associated with the company since we discovered this, and so I've really seen it now go from bench, as we call it in science, to the breakfast table, which is a great satisfaction. We also have a high protein product with MitoPure, again, whey protein, and we are developing other alternative protein products. We have the flexibility of the soft gel as well, and the kit, as I mentioned to you. So with that, I think that's probably my last slide. Please visit timelinenutrition.com, and happy to take questions.
Thank you so much for your insights shared today. We have a couple questions from the online audience, but I'd like to ask if the in-person audience has any questions, and I'll bring the microphone. Yes, we do.
Thank you for a great presentation and very exciting products. During the development in the early stages, did you also consider combining those probiotic strains that might do the conversion with the pomegranate extract, which might potentially be a lot cheaper?
Yes, great question. And I can assure you, together with the CEO and all the scientists, I spent 5 years figuring that out. And the answer is it's not as easy. It's not one strain that does the conversion. So we know the gut microbiome is a very complex ecosystem. So it's never one strain. It's really a conglomerate of multiple species that are involved in this sort of conversion, from the L-glutathione to the different urolithins. And so even if you were to do that, the conversion will not be precise. So some people will, and that's what we see actually in our clinical studies. We see people who produce urolithin A, some are producing low amounts, some are producing a little bit higher. And so I think you would deliver a very imprecise sort of dosing, and that's why direct supplementation is so much more powerful. I worked in the probiotic industry in Nestle. I was leading all the clinical trials, and this is one of the big issues of probiotics. You can't really make sure that all the probiotics are, going to the gut where you want them to go.
Well, thank you so much for your question, and thank you. We have a question online here asking, at what age actually the younger consumers should start worrying about their muscle health?
Sure, another great question. So what we have seen, and I showed you this graph where muscle strength and muscle health starts declining following sort of the third decade of life. We are now actually moving on. I showed you studies in older adults and middle-aged adults. We're actually now going to elite athletes who train so much. These are all in their early 20s and late 20s. And because they're training so much, because they're putting so much load on their muscles get injured. And even at that point, we are seeing that mitochondrial health is playing a role. So I would say this is more, today the evidence is more after, let's say, the 40 plus, but I think if you went to sports nutrition and active lifestyle earlier on, this would also be additive to your current exercise regimen or your dietary habits. So, yeah.
Perfect, thank you. And does anyone else, yes?
Thank you for an excellent presentation. Just wondering, you have generated some very strong clinical evidence here, and will you continue to promote this product on a nutraceutical side? So obviously you have endorsement for geriatrician treatment, people suffering ex-surgery. Will you develop this also in collaboration with a pharma partner? Now, I know you've mentioned Nestle, which is sitting on the border side, but have you ever thought about, obviously, mainstream pharma product?
Yeah. Another fantastic question. So Of course, as I mentioned, the aspiration at the start of the company was to really raise the bar of science and clinical research for nutrition. And that's what we have aspired, is to bring a natural compound to sort of mainstream standard of care, if I can call it. For now, we have a global partnership with Nestle where they take the lead for medical nutrition. So they, of course, have a huge portfolio of products catering to hospitalized and post-hospitalization recovery folks. Pharmaceutical is a different ballgame, and there are not many nutrition compounds that have successfully gone from maybe omega-3 is the only one I can think of. But we are in the plan. We do know the mitophagy science, and we do have aspirations for pharma.
Perfect, thank you. We also have another question from the audience.
Yeah, thank you very much for an interesting talk. You mentioned that there's other aspects of mitochondrial function, biogenesis, respiration. So if you're turning over the mitochondria through mitophagy, do you have any evidence that it might improve mitochondrial respiration, for example, in human skeletal muscle? And also at the whole body level, have you got any data to suggest that translates into increases in VO2 max, for example?
So again, great questions coming from the audience. I think that one is particularly relevant. What does improving mitochondrial function actually mean at a whole body physiology? So we do have a study coming out where we are showing that about a 10% increase in peak VO2 in a non-exercising population. And the effects, I think if you combine it with exercise, people exercise. Most of our consumers are active people. And in terms of the science on mitochondrial respiration, yes, activating mitophagy, and once you've cleared the pool of declining mitochondria, this actually leads to biogenesis, and you get more ATP, you get more mitochondrial abundance in your muscle. At a whole body level, we are also doing what we call as omics. So we take a look at plasma, we do metabolomics, and in general, the whole body signature of mitochondrial health is improved.
Thank you. We have another question from our online audience. Are there any other supplements that may affect the performance of MitoPure?
Yeah, I think I showed it one of the slides. There are a few mitochondrial focus ingredients. So there's NAD supplementation, there is CoQ10, there is resveratrol. These are compounds that have been traditionally used. But where MitoPure is very unique is that its mechanism of action is very different. So, yeah.
Perfect. Do we have any other questions? Yes, we do.
What is your booth number?
There is no booth we have. So again, we just launched in the US. Today I'm just here to showcase the science and clinical studies we did. And I'm happy to chat with you, but we don't have an active booth here. Yeah.
Well, that's all the time for the questions we have. You can connect with the speaker on the online platform as well for everybody interested. And thank you so much for all your great questions. Also, thank you for the online audience. And yes, thank you. Do you have any final words? We have 1 minute left.
Well, to start thinking about your cellular health and mitochondrial health, because I think fast forward in 5-10 years, you will see this is one of the sort of the leading verticals in the nutrition field. That's what my personal belief is. Thanks.